If the freedom movement is the only thing standing in front of us in New York City,
foreign or domestic, who do you serve? You serve the state. You serve the New World Order.
welcome to the Mighty Fuzz podcast. Today, I'm with former lieutenant of the NYPD, John Macari. John, thanks for coming today.
Hey, thanks for having me, brother. It's a pleasure. You know, happy to be back in New York for the holidays. Just finished Christmas, and I'm excited to be here.
No, honestly, man, this man is a hero, guys. This man's a hero. This man stuck up for his principles over his paycheck. He was on the force for 18 years, left his job because they were going to force him to get a shot, and he stood up. Even when all his coworkers did not stand up, he stood up. So we have the utmost respect for you in my household. We have the utmost respect for you, brother.
No, I appreciate that, but I definitely not a hero. I just got older, wiser, and smarter, and I just stopped shirking my responsibility, basically. I think what I did was, it really wasn't for me. I just felt like I was combating something that made no sense for my children. I said, because if they could force me to do something that makes absolutely no sense, where does that lead? Where does that lead? If you could tell me a lie and I'm forced to believe it, or I need to conform to something that I don't believe in and violate my conscience, how could I stop? You know, I heard a lot of people at that time say, I'm just gonna comply, but I'm not gonna have it for my kids. If they come after my kids, then I'm gonna stop. And I'm like, how could you reasonably say that? How could you reasonably say that? The bully's standing in front of your face, and you're like, I'm not gonna stand up for myself, but I'm gonna wait till he goes after my kids, and then I'm gonna stand up. And I just, it just went against everything I believe in, and it forced me it brought me a lot closer to God, honestly.
Amen, brother. And it's noticeable, man. I'm seeing what's going on with your podcast. He's also co-host,
yeah.
Co-host of the Unfiltered.
It's the Finest Unfiltered, we call it for short, but it's New York's Finest Retired and Unfiltered podcast. So I founded it, and I'm co-host with Eric Dim. He's also a retired NYPD lieutenant. He's New York City's most complained about cop.
And what's his handle, real quick? Let's give.
It's most complained cop. It's at most complained cop.
Awesome.
And
shout out to Eric, bro. Shout out to Eric. You guys are doing great work, and I'm catching a couple of your episodes and stuff. And I think it's important for police officers to speak out and talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. You made a podcast to support NYPD, but recently have been being attacked by some PD officers. Would you like to speak on that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I started a podcast. I just, I was stripped from my job in 7 days, basically my identity for the last almost, my entire adult life, basically. And I still felt connected to the job, and I still felt compelled to speak about the things I always spoke about when I was a cop. Maybe I spoke about them over coffee. I didn't do it publicly. I did it in the car. I did it in the locker room. I did it with my guys and the women that worked for me. And we spoke about all these issues of politics, how politics creates legislation, how legislation affects policy, how policy affects public safety. So these are all nothing I've talked about isn't anything that I've not been talking about for the last 20 years.
Right.
So in my ideology really never changed with any of that. So I created this podcast basically for retired guys to come on and give their opinion. I don't believe that what I'm saying is the truth. I believe that it's my truth, and I wanted to give the public the ability to see the inside of a police officer's mind, and to understand that they're also members of the community. They're individuals. They're not to get away from this whole groupthink of, right, oh, he's a cop, he cheats on his wife, and he's dirty, and he steals money, and he hangs out with drug dealers, like you see in the media, and you see basically in any cop movie that you could put on TV.
Right.
And I wanted to show that they're members of the community, and I did that. And then, there's a big taboo in society that as adults, we need to stay in our lane, and there's certain topics that we can't talk about. And I don't believe in that, And so that's what we do basically on our show is we talk about things, mental health, we talk about crime, we talk about politics, we talk about unions, we talk about how all this affects from our belief. And we have other guests on that do that as well, from other schools of thought, other religions, other you know, some even anti-police people we have on.
Which is great, by the way, because you make a bigger conversation from both sides. And you'll learn, right? You'll get it from their perspective. You'll learn from where they're coming from, at least. You know, it's awesome. That's awesome that you do that and you're willing to do that. Some people won't even open that door. So kudos to you, bro.
Yeah, and then, you know, so now I have, like, basically I had originally like a year ago, we had like unions coming after us, the police unions, you know, and that was all through like fake handles and fake social media. Some stuff that was directed at us, but you know, and in like emails that they sent out and things that they were saying at meetings that they were talking about us to the rank and file of the New York City Police Department. So we were getting a lot of flack and pushback from that. But more recently, we've been getting actually from the upper echelon of the NYPD, which is crazy to me, you know, and they consider themselves the dream team. That's what they call themselves.
Shout out to the Dream Team, guys, today. Shout out to the Dream Team.
You know,
we wanted to celebrate them today.
You know. And I don't believe that they're the Dream Team. And a lot of people in New York City don't believe, and throughout the whole country don't believe that they're the Dream Team. New York City's being shut down every night. Like, I'm here now. My wife wants to go in the evening to go take the kids to see the tree. And I'm not willing to take my children there at this point when New York City's being shut down, Midtown's being controlled by, you know, these protests that, in my opinion, you know, I believe in the First Amendment. I believe anybody should be able to protest. But when you're taking over streets, when you're taking over sidewalks, when you're shutting down transit hubs, that is no longer a protest, in my opinion. Now you're impeding on other people's 100%. Ability to walk and speak freely. And that's what's going on in New York City. And they're so focused on a podcast where I actually have cops that anyone that knows police officers using their own name attacking me on social media. You would never see that in the past. You would see it from fake handles and basically a coordinated effort to try to intimidate and silence us, you know, which is insane to me.
What exactly are they attacking? What is being said that that they are attacking?
All right, well, there's a lot of unprofessionalism first. Like, you know, they're saying, oh, I'm mad. We're just retired losers in Florida who sit in our basements. We're mad because our wives are fat and we have nothing else better to do. Like crazy things like that, cursing at us, telling us to come meet them, to fight them places, which completely unprofessional. You would never see from a cop on social media.
What about a charity boxing match? Would you do something like that?
I've done that. I've done them before. And honestly, I would be open to it. But I think it's bigger than that because it's not coming from an individual organic standpoint. Right. It's not like you saying, "Hey, John, I can't stand you and I want to punch you in the face." It's not that at all. It's a literal team, the who's supposedly the dream team, coming at directly at us with these unprofessional attacks. But then on top of that, it's more stay in Florida, don't come here, stop talking, get off of social media, you're a loser. Then going into things about my career that you could only get, or my personal life that you could only get by accessing department computers. I've committed no crimes. I've committed no crimes.
It's alarming, bro.
You know, it's alarming. I've committed no crimes. Eric Dim has committed no crimes. There's no reason for our names to be being ran in databases, for our information to be getting put out online. And then even on top of that, further, I've gotten calls from several people who don't know each other from every part of New York City saying that they have calls from on-duty sergeants in the police department wanting to know where I live and how I feed my family. And that is completely alarming to me. You know, I'm not afraid of it at all. But, you know, when I look at the gravity of that situation, I'm like, here's this little podcast. You know, Eric's not a shy guy. Eric's traveling the Asia right now, fighting in Muay Thai and doing jiu-jitsu all over the world. He's not a shy guy either. He'll walk through New York City with his head up the same way I will. I'll walk into One Police Plaza right now. I'll be the same person that I always was. I'm not afraid. But when I think of it, imagine it wasn't me and Eric. Imagine it was a different podcast. Imagine it was a different media outlet that you feel the weight of the New York City Police Department and they don't understand the intricacies of what's going on where we do. So as much as we're not afraid of it, we think it's a big problem for attacking the First Amendment and as it relates to public safety. why you have your A team focused on us when you should be out there helping?
Got bigger problems. You got big problems right now.
You got
This-
big
I'm
problems.
surprised they even have time to even bring you guys up and watch your podcast. How do they even have the time with everything going on?
I mean,
And
I thank them for watching it though, because
thank you for the likes. Please share.
I mean, like they always say, right? The more they hate, the more you grow, and
That's right.
and that's kind of exactly
Energy's energy, bro.
what's happening. So
Good or bad.
yeah.
You so at this point, are they? Would you say they're still targeting you at this point where you're at right now?
At this point, yeah. I mean, I don't feel comfortable. Like, I'm in New York City. Like I said, I'm not afraid of it. I've been around threats my whole life, but I definitely feel like I'm definitely a target. Like, there's definitely a target on my back.
Yeah.
So but
It's good. It's good that you're speaking out about it, bro. Man, let the world know how people are using our taxpayer money to target some podcasts in Florida. I know as a taxpayer in New York City, that concerns me very much. That two men that are not even from New York at this point. Eric is out of New York, right?
Eric's out of New York.
Yeah.
as well.
So you guys
He's
are
a
not even
Florida
here and
resident
using my
too, yeah.
taxpayer money to target a podcast.
A podcast that basically, and we've done a lot for not only New York City, but like the men and women in the New York City Police Department. Like, we've had like very good shows on about, like, psychiatrists come on, talk about your mental health at the job, after in your mental health in retirement, financial shows, things for people with kids with disabilities, things like that. So like, it really is. It's just an all around, like, as much as it is two cops, we talk about a lot of different things, but we just talk from our experience, which is we grew up in New York City. We lived in New York City for over 40 years. We both served the city of New York for all 40 years. I mean, we have a lot of experience, and, we're well-read people, and a lot of people always came to us on the job and asked advice of us, and they still do.
Yeah.
So it's crazy to see that. Like, it's actually sad, honestly. More than anything, it's sad to see that, like, we're always told as cops, you have to have thick skin, you have to be able to take a lot of like abuse, verbal abuse, stuff like that. But what we're seeing from the people who are in charge running the city right now, they have very thin skin, they have very large egos, and that's not something that you should have in law enforcement.
Preach, brother. Preach. Yeah, 100%. And we see a lot of that. We see a lot of that, especially right now in this time where it's, I try to talk to my brothers in law enforcement, and the way that they kind of romanticize their decision making through the mandates is it's crazy. That's why what you did is so admirable. How is life now that you're not part of the NYPD and retired at this point? Retired early.
I mean, it's crazy because I still feel so attached to the NYPD. Like, I still, like, every day I get hundreds of messages a day from, like, the rank and file in New York City Police Department. What do you think about this? Hey, could you post that? Hey, could you help me out with that? So I still feel very attached to it, but I my life has greatly improved, for over 18 years. I'm not going to lie, the New York City Police Department came before my wife, my kids, and my family and my friends. And so now
Wow.
I'm actually starting to focus more on myself and my family and spending time. So it's really been a blessing. As much as I lost, a few $1 million over the next few years, it really has been a blessing. And like I said, it's brought me, like, closer to God. Like, that the mandate, as terrible as it was, it really showed me even further who I am, and like who and how you're more than just a career,
Right.
And that's not just for me; it's for everybody. Like, you're more than your career.
I can only imagine, bro. You kind of told me how much you walked away from. I don't know if you want to say that publicly, and I don't know that but you walked away from it, and it really shows the principles of this. And I have no doubt that you will get the fruit of what you've done in this time. You have the whole world at your hands now, and you leave when you didn't give in to that fear. You didn't give in to the worry of losing that job, even though you love doing what you did. You lived in New York, So there's a whole brave new world ahead of you, man. This is very exciting. Now the podcast's taking off, so this is big things ahead, John.
No, it's weird how it worked, man. Because media is the last thing I ever thought that I would ever be in.
Yeah.
But like, I always loved drinking coffee, talking.
He didn't take our coffee, guys.
Yeah,
he didn't take our coffee today.
But but I always loved it. I was always into talking, discussing ideas with people, talking policy. So it's just weird how I just moved into that realm. Like, it's such a weird thing, and honestly, it's at God's hands. Like,
That's right, King. That's right.
I mean, it forced me to I had no ability to speak out at that in the height of the mandates. I had absolutely no ability to push back. So I was reading the Bible. I was reading Sermon on the Mount. So I read the Sermon on the Mount, and in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus gives a ton of parables.
Yeah.
You know, and I won't go into all those parables, but he speaks in like giving like, oh, if the soil's not good, then you plant the seeds, the tree won't grow, and if it does grow, it won't bear good fruit, like things of that nature. So I read through all of those, and I think that they're insightful. But after he leaves, the apostles tell Jesus, "Why'd you talk to them like that? You don't talk to them like us. Why'd you just talk to them like you did? You don't talk to. You speak plainly to us. I never heard you say that before." And he said, "Because to you it's been given. The kingdom of God's been given to you. They have eyes, but they don't see. They have ears, but they don't hear, nor do they understand." And a light bulb went off in my head, and I was like, he's talking about memes. He's talking about posting on social media. He's talking about people only understanding these small ideas. And I created a Twitter account, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just implant my truth into the world. And
You've been attacked ever since.
But I've grown ever
That's how
since.
it goes, right?
But I've grown ever since, and
that uncomfortability space actually makes us grow.
I use my own name, and it's a big slap in the face to the New York City Police Department and to the elected officials in New York City.
Yeah.
You pushed me and my family out of New York City for what? This is who I am. People always like, oh, I can't start a podcast because, I'll say crazy things. I'm like, well, I'm not like that because I don't say crazy things. These are the things I think. If I can't say what I'm think, and you can't, if you can't,
we don't have free will to speak. Then we don't have freedom of speech. Then
exactly, and I might not be 100% right, but I mean, I'm seeing a lot of people on all sides. I mean, I have people that you would think are my polar opposite, leftist liberals who are now agreeing with me. And people and on some stances I agree with them, and we're seeing that the world's more nuanced than I'm a Republican or I'm a Democrat, or I'm a cop and you were arrested. The world's a lot more nuanced than I'm a good guy, you're a bad guy. No, we're all the same. We're all sinners. We're all sinners trying to get to the truth. It's either we're sinners trying to get to the right path, or we're sinners staying and doing bad things. And that's just basically what I've been doing. And my Twitter account, I probably have like 7,000 followers or something. But I mean, it gets viewed millions of times. I mean, I don't know another podcast or another person that gets quoted in the news media as much as I do. Like, right. I really don't.
In a good, did they put you in a good light, or they? Yeah,
I've had I've had some attacks in the media, but I would say in the most part, they literally, it's more of like from an expert standpoint of, hey, listen, this is what this retired lieutenant said.
Right. Which is awesome. I would like to talk to you about community policing. I know you feel, you were speaking with my wife and I before, talking about that the police should reflect the community. And I agree with you there very much, man. How is it like working with people that don't live in the city but maybe commute for the NYPD? Do you see a difference in their policing at all? I mean, I know everybody's an individual.
So I think anybody can learn anything. I think 100% you could become accustomed to anything, and I could make you the CEO of AT&T, and there'll be a learning curve and a learning process, and if you want to be good at that, you'll be good at that. 100%. But I definitely think there is a learning curve when people come in from outside of the city. City's very, it's a very unique place. You grow up around all these different cultures, all of these religions, skin tones, sexual orientations, socioeconomic differences. One kid's father is a billionaire, the other kid's dirt poor. And
they live on the same block.
And they live on the same block.
It's crazy, yeah.
And they go to the same school, and they do the same things, and they hang out together. And so New York City is a very different place. And, as much as I push back at the diversity, equity, inclusion model, I believe in equal opportunity. There are some scenarios where I say, hey, maybe it's not the best model to bring in these kids from Long Island that went to all white schools. They only have friends that are white and Catholic, and you throw them directly into Bedford-Stuyvesant. Or maybe it's not, and not even to just knock those kids, maybe it's not the best model to take an immigrant who doesn't understand this country right away and throw him into the busiest part of New York City to police. Like we saw, you saw that unfortunately the kid lost his life when there was a Chinese cop and he was patrolling he was doing a vertical in the projects, and he was so scared he had his finger on the trigger as he's walking. Kid opens the project door, bang! The project's doors, they're loud.
Yeah.
He gets scared, he pulls the trigger, and you could never recreate the shot, but he pulled the trigger and the bullet skipped up the stairwell and hit the kid that opened the door directly in his heart.
Wow.
And that was based on fear. That was based on and the kid didn't mean to kill anybody at all. But
that was that young police. He was a young police officer, right? A young kid.
He was a young cop.
Yeah.
He was a young cop, and I think when you put people into those situations that aren't trained and aren't nuanced into the culture, there is a problem with that. And I think that I think that's the only thing that I've ever agreed with Eric Adams on. One of the few, anyway, is that I do believe preference should be given to people who live in the city and grew up in the city to become police officers.
Why he pushed for that?
He said it. He's made the comment before. That he said that he wants everybody to live in the city, and I do kind of agree with it, because I did hear. I'm not going to lie. I've heard throughout my career, I don't care. I don't live here anyway. And
I've heard it myself. I heard it myself, bro. And I'm not even a cop. I have friends that are cops, and they kind of like they have to do the Bronx and Manhattan, and they're like, they're gonna do what they're gonna do. I just need the overtime. I hear things like that.
I just got to get my pension, and to me that angers me. It angers me totally. Imagine your kid's teacher. You go to public school, and your kid's teacher lives in Jersey, and she's like, I don't care. I don't live here anyway.
Right.
What does that mean?
Right.
So you don't care about my children. You don't care about
Right.
the safety of my wife and my family.
Right.
You don't care about my neighbors. Like that to me is an unnuanced, and I don't believe that everyone that makes that statement truly believes that,
Right.
but it's a dumb thing that's being said, and I think we need to weed out that nonsense.
Yeah, especially because what people don't as much as cops are human beings and stuff, they do have authority to take you off your street. And you have people that don't really care about the people there. That's concerning. I mean, listen, it's tough when you're a cop in the Bronx or Brooklyn and you're seeing people kill each other with no regard, like sociopaths. But also, too, it's a tough job, right? You guys have a real tough, and it's supposed to be an honorable job. You guys are public servants, and I would just want to know that there are police patrolling that actually know the neighborhood and have a pulse of the neighborhood. And that's why, John, I like you, man, because you're very much about that. You're from Brooklyn. You were raised in Brooklyn, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And you have a real good pulse of what's going on out here.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I think that there are a lot of great cops out there, and I think the majority of people are really good people. Whether they came here, their first generation, they just came off the boat, or they did come from Long Island. I think people really do get into the profession to do good things, but I think it could get twisted. People have the ability to shut down because it is such a hardened profession. Police work will test your soul.
I'll be honest, I could never be a cop. I have the utmost respect for
just the hours alone.
Yeah.
will destroy the average person. Just the working, the constant working, the constant switching of your days off, and the times that you're working, the time you're away from your family. Just that. Now add in that I'm working for a system that's set up directly against me, and then the people that I'm supposed to keep safe. I don't ever really interact with the good people. I interact most often with the bad people. So it has a way of definitely hardening people and giving the us first them mentality the same way that a kid on the street could experience the us first them mentality. But it's through things like this and talking and reaching out that we could weed that stuff out. And it's not being done. We're being led down a destructive path where the cops are the bad guys, and that's in my opinion, it's a failure in leadership. There is no leadership, because that they should be reaching out. You shouldn't have a kid or a man or a woman from a lower income society that doesn't feel that they have an outlet to speak their mind about something, right? And that's currently what's going on. no, we're gonna throw a barbecue for you, and everything's good. You're safe. Crime's down in your neighborhood. Don't worry about what we're doing.
Right. But that's where I see problems and hurdles. I see opportunity too, and this is why it's so important for these podcasts like yourself, and have that dialogue to happen with people even you disagree with, right? And vice versa, right? I'll bring people here. I'm looking forward to having some socialists in here or some Marxists. Let's have a conversation. Antifa. I don't even care if you're Antifa. It's someone I ideologically disagree with. I would love to have a conversation with them because that's how you fix things. Because if we don't have conversations, we just go straight to conflict. So we're starting a new segment called Freedom or Safety. Freedom being don't tread on me. Safety being back the blue. We both got our flags. Crystal's going to ask us 5 questions, and we're going to give our opinions by waving the flag. Here we go.
Number 1, do you believe the city charter should be able to, in any capacity, override the state constitution?
Absolutely not.
All right.
Good. 2, are you in favor of abolishing victimless crimes?
No.
Proceed.
I mean, again, what is a victimless crime though? What is that?
Basically, where we trust that the government can play Minority Report, that there's interaction between our public service and the free men and women. So let's say someone runs a stop sign and doesn't hurt nobody, that there should be no contact between a law enforcement and the public, because a crime, the definition of a crime is it has to be a victim.
Absolutely. And where you're saying the crimes that are more towards geared to, this is a societal norm and we're enforcing that. Something like that.
Just playing Minority Report, and even worse for the NYPD specifically, is that they're making money off this. Like, this is more of a game to make money off free men and women.
So I'll agree that the police should be an arm of society, not an arm of the government or enforcers for like financing the budget of the city or the state or whatever. But I also think that when you see that, there are numerous complaints. Like take that crime for example. Let's use the stop sign for example, or use. People tend to say that a lot about drug users too. It's victimless. Oh, they're not harming anybody. But you will see, like if you work on the other side, you work on the police side. There are numerous residents. People blow these stop signs every night. I'm scared to cross the street. I'm scared to do that. And a lot of what those responses are to community complaints. Like a lot of those times when you see the police hone down on one thing in particular, especially when it gets towards minor crimes, it's because that community specifically is complaining about it. If the community's fine with it as a whole, as a majority, then yeah, absolutely, I would say, then why are we enforcing it? Why? And it should be enforced not to the letter of the law to when things are egregious. And it's like, no, this guy could have killed. Should have a kid been riding his bike, somebody would have been dead. But if the guy just rolled by the stop sign and nobody was there and it was 2:00 in the morning, no, should that be enforced? No.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, thanks, question.
Number 3, do you support NYPD officer quotas?
Absolutely not.
Don't try it on me.
That's using people. That's using people to finance. That's absolutely there's a number behind that enforcement. Like there's a financial number. We're being used as numbers instead of police going out there and doing what they're supposed to do, interact in the community, protect and preserve life. Why do I have to write X amount of cell phone tickets or whatever? The guy did 27 to 25. I mean, these things are ridiculous,
I mean, I think, and to a broader, I totally agree. I think to a broader point is that it really shows with the quotas how the government is being weaponized against the people, how they look at us, and using you guys as an extension of tyranny. That's kind of the missing component here with the whole thing, is that the NYPD are good men and women that want to change their areas like yourself, and then are just extensions of tyranny. You're literally going out, not you specifically, but law enforcement are going out and doing these quotas for 30 years, This is an
Yeah,
institution about 30 years. And these are all tax-paying people that are just going upon their day and then having contact with law enforcement. Law enforcement, when it was originally created, was for criminals. And we kind of have this interaction between police officers to make money for the state, you know?
No, I mean, I 100%. If it's not directly involved in public safety, why am I giving your grandmother a summons because she looked at her phone for 1 second while she was at a red light and then put it back? Like there are definitely, it goes too far when it goes to quotas, because I think, you know, human tendency is laziness. Human tendency is, oh well, I have to get these 5, so it's just going to be the first 5 people I see, or I have to get these 20, so it's going to be the first 20 I see. You know, there was always a quota when I was policing. I did anti-crime the majority of my career, which is like plainclothes enforcement. Yeah. I targeted, you know, crime patterns, burglaries, robberies, things of that nature. And my quota was 2 arrests a month I had to make. But I could
2 arrests?
2 arrests I had to make. But I could make 2. I could have made 2 arrests on my drive over here today. I mean, the amount of crime that you see on New York City streets. So as much as I don't support quotas, there are a lot of people in policing that will say, hey, you know, these quotas, there's nothing going on. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm like, I went shopping with my kids for an hour the other day.
I see shit, yeah.
And I'm like, I could still be making a ton of arrests in New York City. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on in New York City streets. So, I mean, there's like a balance, and these quotas, I think, stem from a lot of laziness and leadership and the unwillingness to weed out someone who's not a good cop, someone who doesn't police, and someone who just wants to earn a check. And I think that a lot of that stems from that, and then those quotas directly hurt the public.
Right. What's the next one?
Number 4. Do you support officers wearing body cameras for public transparency?
Yes, I do, but what flag's that?
That's a don't tread on me.
All right, so don't tread on me. But I will say, I believe the way body cameras are being used currently is more towards a punitive measure. And they're looking at a lot of stuff that officers are being penalized for on body cameras today aren't really things that the public is concerned with. It's being micro, like almost like ESPN. Like, you know, I'm there on Monday morning and I'm like, hey, you know what? I don't really like what he did there. Oh, did you see he was wearing white socks? A lot of like stupid things. It's being used to actually target the police officers as opposed to actually being shown for public transparency. Because when we do get the bigger incidents, what do you see? You see that they hold on to these body cameras for months.
Right.
And it's like, wait a minute. No, you said this was for transparency. Release the body camera. Put it
won't,
right out.
Or they'll do it strategically. They'll hold something, you know. And you see a lot of that. And honestly, I think there's been there has been awakening on both ends, I believe, because you do have these claims that cops do things, and then you watch the body cam and the cop was totally in the right. And at the same time, now we're seeing all the corrupt cops. So I actually agree 100% with everything he said about the cameras.
All right, guys, we have our last one. Number 5. Are you in favor of stop and frisk? So that would be blue line or yellow.
Loyalist. Go ahead.
I mean, so, you know, stop, question, and frisk. I believe that it was used improperly. It was used as a quota system in New York City. And a lot of people that got stopped in New York City, particularly in the height of the Bloomberg administration, when as crime fell, this was already still a number. So they needed crime to continue to fall. As New York City was one of the safest cities in America, actually was the safest city in America, and it was a place where businesses were thriving, communities were coming up, jobs were doing. You could take the train at 3 o'clock in the morning in New York City, go out, and nobody would bother you. You know, at the height of that, there was still stop, question, and frisk was being used completely improperly. So I don't, you know, and it has a very bad rap. You know, I could give you several examples of where I believe stop, question, and frisk needs to come back and why. Please do. And why. I'll give you one scenario. I for a time in my career, I was a sergeant. I was a crime sergeant in the 6-6 precinct, which covers Borough Park, parts of Sunset Park, parts of Flatbush. And on 8th Avenue, we were getting a grand larceny pattern, which was actually turned into a robbery pattern of the target was Asian women, and the the offender was male Hispanic, 17 to 25 from the reports, that on 8th Avenue in the evening hours, in the parts where 8th Avenue, particularly between 39th and 44th Street, we had several robberies of Asian women from either their cell phones or their bags, and sometimes those turned into robberies if the woman fought back or if she got injured in the course of them trying to rip it out of her hand. So I'm up there one night. I'm in a taxi. It's dressed up like a Mexican taxi because we're in Sunset. There's a large amount of Mexican taxi cabs where they have it done up. So we were sitting in that car. We were waiting, and I observed 2 Hispanic males, and they were casing the location. What appeared to me to be casing the location, and they're walking back and forth where all the stores at this point are shut down, and every woman that walks by them, they're looking at it. Some women, they actually start to follow. So one time they're about to start to follow the women. They're about to follow this woman, and as they start walking, I'm like, oh man, they're gonna do it. And I'm with a younger cop who I'm training on how to do police work and how to stay like blended into society and not let anyone know that we're the police, that we're there. And so I'm like, hold on, because as a cop, I can't actually. I don't know that it's them, right? I'm watching it. I'm like, let's see what's going to happen. And as she's walking, they start walking faster. A marked cop car comes. They back off. All right? So I'm like, all right, they're definitely. Now I have no doubt in my mind that they're going to rob somebody. They haven't done it at this point. So I sit up. Another 20, 30 minutes goes past. Now it's really dark. The night has set in. They're still in that same location, pacing back and forth on the block, or just trying to blend in, but in the middle of nowhere. No trains, no stores there. They haven't met up with anyone. And here comes this woman, completely unsuspecting. She's on her phone. She's walking, and now they start to go faster. So I'm like, hold on, wait. And I'm like, oh man, they're gonna do it. The kid throws the car into drive and steps on the gas. Vroom. They hear the car. They turn around. They stop. I'm like, stop them, right? I stop them. I'm like, put your hands up against the wall. I search them. I pat them down and give them a quick search of their pockets, their waist area. I make sure that they have no weapons, anything that I'm going to be shot in my face that night, and I could go home to my family that night. And same for the guy that I'm working with. They have no weapons on them. They're younger kids. I'm like, you guys got ID on you? They're like, yeah. They give me their ID. They live in Harlem. Now they're miles. I'm like, what are you doing here? Oh, we're waiting for our friend. I'm like, where's your friend live? Can't answer the question. Where are we right now? One starts crying. I'm like, look, I know what you're doing. I have your names. I ever see you here again, believe me, you're not going to see us. We're going to see you. I said, we're going to lock you up. This is going to be something that's going to impact your entire life. I'm like, I don't know where you live, but I'm sure I'm not sure you don't got a lot of money, but I'll tell you right now, you never will if this is the life that you're going to want to lead. And I took their names down, and I basically put that on what was called a stop, question, and frisk report. And I believe in my heart that that's what public safety is, and that's what the public expects a police officer to do. However, at the time, that was the Bill de Blasio administration, and I really stopped, question, and frisk. I violated a lot of policy by doing the stop the way that I did it, and particularly searching them and things of that nature. Yeah. So I'm not for stop. I don't believe anybody should be stopped indiscriminately, but when there are a lot of factors, I do believe me keeping their name on a piece of paper in a database that's not being used, other than if we do get more robberies in there and they fit the description, that if they have criminal profiles, that we could show the victims that. So that's my take on stop, question, and frisk. It was used improperly, but I do believe that it is a necessary part of policing.
Got you. I use this flag because I believe in the Fourth Amendment, and like you said, because it was done improperly, like you admitted, this is a violation of the people. So that means just as much as you told that great story, which I do believe in watching behavior patterns, that if we give in to safety for our freedom, we deserve neither, right? That's the saying, and if we don't respect the Constitution, absolutely, there are these gray areas where people get violated. And if I had to choose between that, I'm sure there were 100 stories that you just told that people were helped in those situations. There's probably thousands where cops violated it. So that's why I chose Don't Tread on Me.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the bigger conversation is I think that's really...
How do we fix the both? How do we combine both, right?
How do you bring it into because there were tons of stops, you know. When I was a young sergeant, I had a kid, he just got on my team, and there were quotas.
Yeah.
And he comes on my team at the end of the month, and he has no arrest for the month. And he calls me over to the scene, and he's like, Sarge, I got an arrest. I was like, what do you got? He's like, I got a guy with a gravity knife. Right? So I go over to the scene. Guy's wearing a construction helmet. He has a knife in plain view, which is probable cause, by the way. It's in plain view. Knife opens with centrifugal force. It's a gravity knife. He has a prior arrest conviction, which would make it a felony. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, do me a favor, take him out of handcuffs. And he's like, what do you mean? What do you mean? I'm like, the guy's coming from work, dude. I was like, he's not committing any crimes. This is not our target audience. We're looking for public safety. He's like, I know, but I don't have one for the month. I was like, I get it, but we're not going after good people. I said, you know, he's coming from work. He's not, I don't care that he has an arrest history. He's coming from work. He's not committing a crime right now. That is irrelevant to me. And, you know, you saw a lot of people for the sake of numbers and for the sake of putting dots on a map, the majority would have made that arrest.
Right.
You know what I mean? And even I never even blamed the kid for it because he was into the system. This was the system that he was put into it. Right, I just knew bigger picture, and I just had more experience, and I just knew that, hey, we could drive 2 feet away, and we're going to actually see somebody.
Right. No, that's exactly right. And that's,
you know,
I think, John, and that's what I think I would like to talk about on this podcast today, because I think we're saying the same thing without saying it, which is we have a sick society. And I want nothing more than for the society to mature, and then we don't have to have policing. I obviously will always have police, and we agree on that, law enforcement. And if we had law enforcement that was pushed back to the state constitution, at the least, you know, obviously, like you said, there's policies that were created that kind of encroach on our federal constitution. But in order for that to happen and not to create a vacuum where there's crime, I mean, like you said, there's big laws now and there's still crime, right? So how do we can't pull one without fixing the other, the balance aspect that you're saying. And what are some solutions? Do you ever, like, at nighttime when you're just laying there, like, do you think of any solutions that the society could hold themselves accountable where there wouldn't be so much police interaction?
I mean, I think we've been there before and we've seen it, you know. I mean, I grew up in Bensonhurst, and I don't believe that this is the greatest model for society, but I mean, my neighborhood was a very safe neighborhood. I mean, it was mafia controlled. It wasn't controlled by the neighborhood, but there was a very community aspect base to my neighborhood. Everybody knew everybody. The teachers lived in that community. The cops lived in that community. The sanitation workers lived in that community. The business owners lived in that community. So what did they care about? Their community, right? So everyone had a say in how society was ran, you know. And I always used to say, when I was a kid, if you would go in my neighborhood and break into cars, or you would break into someone's house, you would hope the cops would come. Yep. Because I'll tell you right now, you wouldn't even have to worry about the mafia either. Your neighbor. You'd have to worry about the sanitation worker or the teacher or the janitor. They're coming out of the house. Everybody's coming out of the house, you know. And I mean, it's up to us to stop shirking our responsibilities in society to, first of all, set those boundaries, and then have an enforcement arm when things come out, when there needs to be legal ramifications, or you're like, you know what, this guy doesn't belong literally walking the streets with us because he's a danger to society. Something needs to be done about it. And I believe that policing is a humane answer to that, because the other answer is find a hole for him somewhere and get rid of him because we can't deal with him.
Right, street justice.
You know?
Yeah, no, it's 100% right. You know, it's funny that people around our age always say that they remember. I mean, how old are you?
I'm 43.
You're 43. So you were around when all that stuff, all the mafia stuff was happening in New York. And I hear that in Ozone Park. I hear that in Bensonhurst, you know, and it's obviously we can't have the mafia running things, right? But what are they doing? What can we extract that's good from maybe a bad outlet? What can we extract? And I think it's neighborhood accountability. The alpha men, you know, on a lot of the preaching I do online is having more alpha men stand up in my neighborhood, there are people you mess with and there's people you don't mess with. And it was just known. And I think if everybody was upright, if every man in their house was upright, we'd be able to get the crime down and less cop interaction, so we can focus on these victimless crimes that I feel that should be pushed back. And that's what we're trying to do. At least our household is really our long-term goal, is to just get a society where we're not under this tyranny from the police force, because you didn't sign up for what they're asking you guys to do. You signed up to save your neighborhood, right? To help your society. And along with you signing up for that and doing that, you're also the police are doing these quotas and the stop and the frisk and the broken window policy, which we'll get into. And this is, to me, we have groomed this society that is just okay with it. And this is why everybody's so docile, I think. We've groomed the society that we're just being controlled by, these laws and policies that go against our Constitution.
Yeah, I mean, I think I say it all the time. I just think New York City, like, you just completely see the epitome of apathetic men. They have complete apathy in their hearts. Like, they, it's like, well, I make a high salary and, I eat pretty good and I have good health care and there's good restaurants here. So anything that happens other than that, it's really not my responsibility and there's nothing else I could do. This is what they teach. This is what they say they want. They control the entire lives of that man's household, and or female's household, and I think we need to definitely move away from that. We've put too much trust in politicians, and I keep hearing leadership. I don't see any of it. I don't call these people leaders. I call them managers.
Yeah.
I don't, particularly even even in the New York City Police Department, I will not call them chief. It's the reason the logo on my podcast is an Indian head. And I removed the white colonizer basically out of the patch of the New York City Police Department. I put it to the more feral native of the land, and it's just the fact that we've been conditioned to believe there's nothing you can do as a human, and you don't have a right to an opinion, and you shouldn't say anything. You're in the system. Be a good boy, and it'll feed you, and it'll take care of you, but don't speak out about anything else. Don't say anything about anything else. And we look to these people. Oh, he's a chief. If we were in a Native American society, he would not be considered a chief because of his characteristics, because of his compassion towards the community, because of his care about public safety, the job that he said he was going to be in, the overall health in New York City. So I can't give those titles to people like that. I think that's disrespectful to give people those titles and to look at these politicians as they know better than us. When I mean, clearly, in New York City, these people are incompetent people. I've invited almost every politician in New York City.
They
on
respectfully
my show.
decline, right?
I've had people come on. I've had politicians come on, but they're truly brave because I don't give them questions ahead of time. They come on. They don't know where I'm going to go or where it's going to go, and they're brave people, And then you have people that come on and they preach down to the public.
Yeah.
But yet they can't sit down and hold a conversation with a member of the community or just anybody in general because their beliefs aren't really their beliefs.
Yeah. That's right, man. And even in our good book, brother, it says, there's story upon story of God saying that, you don't have no mere mortal that's your leader, that Jesus was the King of Kings. And he wasn't talking about the state kings. He was talking about us as upright men. And that's really important, right? Because even in Samuel 1, they talk about that you don't need a king. And the people just demanded a king. They needed someone to rule over them. And God, as he gives you free will, he gave them a king, and the king led them astray. And this is, we kind of see this with politicians, like what you're saying, this leadership stuff. We kind of see this with the politicians, like that. This is it. We're gonna vote, and they're gonna solve all our problems. And right there, I think in our society, you see the laziness, brother. And I think we agree on that, right? Like,
absolutely.
It's like no one wants to get their hand dirty.
Yeah, I hear it all the time. Trump's got to get in, or it's over.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't put my faith in man like that, in any man.
Awesome.
I don't even put faith in myself in that. And,
right.
and I personally do think I have a lot of solutions that could help New York City or the country. But I know that I'm human and I'm flawed and I'm a sinner and I'm weak and things of that nature. And I know that we're all human. So I know as a collective that if people, I do believe that the majority of people in this country and in this city are moderates. You might identify yourself as a Democrat. I might identify myself as a Republican or a conservative or an independent. But when we start to talk about actually the issues,
same thing.
We're really not far apart.
Yeah, that's right.
We might be a little. There might be little differences between us, but we're not that far apart. Our household conversations need to be brought to the public. Our household conversations are being hidden and kept in our house, and our public conversations are totally different from what is actually happening in our homes, and that needs to change nationwide.
Love it, bro. Love it. So we were speaking about First Amendment audits. The gentleman, Sean Reyes, I believe does, because I'm always watching these guys that are just cursing at cops. And let me just start with this. Anybody doing that is not doing an audit. They're just disrespecting police and other humans. But we spoke about Sean Reyes. What's your take on we the people holding the checks and balances?
I'm not against doing audits. I'm not against it totally. I think when it comes to Sean Reyes, I watch a lot of videos where he pushes the line and he does it to get a rise out of the police officers as opposed to showing the short sides of their policy, particularly like when he's going to RMPs, which are radio motor patrol cars, they're cop cars basically, and he's pulling door handles. I think at that point I get what you're saying. Yes, that is taxpayer funded monies, but I think you're crossing the line. But there are a lot of things that I have watched of him that made me think, and I do agree with him on. So I'm not against the audit. I'm against how a lot of the stuff he does goes against it. And I know, being a police officer, I actually did a show on it about the NYPD policy about recording in the commands, and I personally think it's a terrible policy. It goes directly against the First Amendment, and I do believe he is right. And I don't believe most of what he does. He knows that he's right when he's walking in there, and I don't know why cops engage with him. Yeah,
we spoke behind the scenes, but if you would have encountered a situation like that, what would be your take if you kind of know his playbook? How would you deal with that interaction as a police officer?
I mean, I would just disarm him because I would use my discretion in that case. I mean, it's NYPD policy. It is not the law. So if he came in videotaping him, I would just pretend that he's not videotaping me and deal with him. Can I help you, sir? Is there anything I can help you with? Is there anything we could do for you today? If he pointed out to the policy, I would tell him that is the policy of the NYPD. However, I'm not enforcing that. Is there anything that I can help you with today? Are you here? Do you need to file a complaint? Do you have any questions? Do you need directions? What could that be? I would completely disarm him and not engage with him because, again, it is policy. It's not law. And even in the policy itself, it says... Even in the policy itself, it says that just because somebody is videotaping it does not mean that they are committing a crime. And, it's basically saying but now, on the other hand, if you come into the command and you're being disorderly and you're interfering with police operation, but we don't see where police are interacting with people and someone's asking for a business card, which is fine. I don't see any reason why that shouldn't be. But what we see professional agitators come up to police, looking to agitate them, cursing at them, yelling at them, getting in their face, acting violent and tumultuously, and demanding a business card. And as that law sits currently, the police have no choice but to hand over a business card to you. And I believe that is another improper. It just really wasn't taken into account. We have way too many laws on the books and way too many politicians that believe that they're going to solve problems when they make law, and all we see that happens is they create further problems, and I believe that law did exactly that.
What would be the medium then? How do we protect the good citizens that do deserve the card and protect the law enforcement when we have these agitators? What do you think a good medium is? Do we just throw the card out, or do you? Is it their discretion?
You're stopped by the police. If you were in a police interaction, if you were given a summons, police should give you a card. Then I think that I could see, or whatever it may be, your name or your shield number in some aspect, which we've always had.
Right.
So and
that's a new thing people are just using, by the way. We the people are just learning about that, and then they go and they abuse it and they disrespect, and so I am on board. But there's a lot of audits that they're not auditing. They're literally just disrespecting police, and you're doing no service to the people, we the people, by going up to a cop, agitating, and because they can't do anything because they're on the job, and you're taking advantage of that space. So I am in 100% agreement with that. But you would be for keeping the card with discretion.
Absolutely, I'm for keeping the card, and I'm actually for the audit. And listen, I do get that at some point, the lines will be pushed a little bit, just because you are going against a policy or a law that sits on the books that you believe is not proper. And I unfortunately, like, there will be arrest and legal action taken on the part of somebody that's doing that, and I believe that's what's great about America. That stems right from that's like Martin Luther King's playbook, right? Civil rights movement. That's the playbook. He went in those restaurants, fully well knowing I'm going to get arrested, and I'm gonna sue, and I'm gonna push back because this is illegal. It doesn't say this. And so I support all that stuff, and I support transparency. But I think today, the way the NYPD sits, this is the least transparent NYPD you've ever seen.
Yeah. Watching the sit-ins for the freedom movement, I was part of those, and it was out of the Martin Luther playbook. If you were policing in that situation, and they didn't want to serve him because of his skin color, how do you deal with that situation between the owner and the customer?
Again, I believe businesses have the right to refuse services. I believe that is completely wrong, wholeheartedly. I support boycotting the business. I support that you going in there, but I do believe that if that business owner does not want you there and they refuse you service and you refuse to get up, that is an arrestable criminal trespass situation. Although I agree with the protester, and I agree that is completely wrong, the way to remedy that is, unfortunately, to get arrested and file a lawsuit. Yeah. That is exactly what it is, and that's why I supported all of those sit-ins. I did. I supported them wholeheartedly, and I was like, at the same time, I'm like, it was such like a hard thing for me, because I'm like, wow, if it was me at the sit-in, I think I would have to make the call to make the arrest, even though I don't agree with this personally.
Yeah.
But I do believe that is ultimately the job of law enforcement, and I've done that for 18 years. I've went to rallies that I support the people, and I've went to rallies that I don't support the people, and I have to police those situations exactly the same, because if I don't, I'm not doing my job. I'm not upholding my oath.
There were nuance areas with that captain in Manhattan. I forgot his name, but he did speak with the owner and explain that they don't have to show passes. And they allowed it, but you are right, brother. You are right. You got to uphold your oath. If someone doesn't want you on the property.
Yeah, I mean, how could you pick and choose? And that was my stance even prior to it being enforced. I mean, like I said, I was still on the job when it got put into place. So in like the week prior to it coming in, I spoke to people that I know, and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna go do sit-ins," and I was like, "Well, are we willing to be arrested?" And they're like, "No. Why would we get arrested?" I'm like, "Well, if we go sit in a business and they tell us that they want us to leave and we don't leave, we're getting arrested." And I so as much as I supported it, I already knew what I was giving up. And at that point, I didn't want to tarnish my criminal record, have my firearm license removed, and all of that stuff. So I wasn't willing to go that far. I was like, I'm not going to do the sit-ins. I refuse to, and even till today, I refuse to sit in any of those establishments. They will not get $1 from me. Nobody, and even the restaurant owners, I've seen some. I refuse to even shake their hand or associate myself with them whatsoever.
So no cheesecake for you?
No cheesecake factory for me.
Brother, last question. Let's get to the good one. As you're seeing, Hochul's trying to come down with some legislation to allow the DOH to require or to make the decision about putting We the People into quarantine camps. How that kind of will come down is the DOH will deem one of our neighbors sick, and they'll give direction to the NYPD to make an arrest. Do you think the NYPD will or will not follow orders?
I think 100%. The overwhelming majority of the NYPD will follow orders. I don't believe that they have the moral integrity that the majority of people, and it's not just a knock on the NYPD, I think as a society, moral integrity in men, the apathy in the hearts of men, it's seeped in, and most people just don't have the courage and the wherewithal to see where this is going or know history and how things like this happen in history. I do think anyone that does that is violating their oath truly and utterly, and I don't believe that they should be police officers. But unfortunately, I believe that, like we've seen during the other mandates, we've seen a lot of people who were dead against the mandates who completely did a 360 once the mayor started enforcing them. I saw guys not wear masks for a year, get sick, go out every night, and then a mask mandate come out and they became mask Nazis.
Wow.
And same for me when I wouldn't, I had naturally provable forming antibodies in my system, but yet I was treated as if I was dirty or if I was a danger to men who I was around for almost a year and a half at that point every day, and none of us were wearing masks together, and so I read Anne Frank as a child, as a young kid. I think something that really sat with me, I always wondered, like, how could that happen? How could society ever turn? How could you ever turn on your neighbor like that? And, I read that book when I was 9 years old. And at 42 years old, I was like, oh, wow, this is how it happens.
This is how it happens. And you got to
This
see
is
it
exactly
firsthand.
how it happens.
Yeah, it's what a surreal, brother, surreal. Brother, it's been a pleasure to have you. Our household has the utmost respect for what you did for this city. I know you don't look at yourself a hero, but I know what you walked away from, and the principle over paycheck is very rare and few, and you are one of those men that have done that. Please, if you can, if there's any last words to the people watching, what would be some last words of encouragement?
No, I hear everybody, 24, it's going to be terrible. The world's coming to an end. I'm a big history buff. I've read, I think part of the 20th century, Soviet Union, Nazi Germany. I've read all these books, and I've read all memoirs of people in there. And I don't believe we're anywhere near those times. I believe those people lived much harder lives than us. I believe, my life has been truly blessed. Even the hardship that people are like, oh my God, you gave up so much. I really, I'm like, I'm blessed. I live this soft, easy life. I have everything at my fingertips: air conditioning, food, unlimited supplies of food. I have more money than probably every generation in my family combined. So I think that what we need to do is just get back to being who our ancestors were that came before us. My parents, my grandparents, they had nothing, but they were real people. They were the things that we spoke about in our household, they spoke about in the streets, and they spoke about to who elected officials. My mother's favorite saying was, she used to say, that and $1.50 will get you on the bus. Like, if there was a wise guy on the block, you had a lot of money, a politician, anybody, that and $1.50 will get him on the bus. Like, we're all human, And I think that's what we need to get. Stop putting money ahead of your principles. And like I said, I think I told you we spoke on the phone. I just kept in my head, that I'm not of this world. Jesus wasn't of this world. My Savior wasn't of this world. And I can't serve two masters. And as much as I tried to talk myself into taking that shot, I believe I sat up and wrestled with God for nights. And I was like, what's the big deal? What's that? I could just take it. It's no big deal. I wasn't afraid to take it. Took another. I've took another.
Right. Right.
I'm not anti anything, but there's just what was happening and the legislation. It was wrong. It was immoral, and I just believe, like, how could we sit back and pretend, lie to ourselves, that things that you don't believe in, and go along with it and pretend like it's not happening. So I just think that more people need to actually express who they are, and it's not that scary. I mean, I've been doing it for 2 years. Yeah, I get beat up a little bit, but all in all, I think the majority of people, a lot of what I say, majority of people, we're all having the same conversation. So let's just have a real conversation. I mean, and I think that's truly love. If I don't tell you my real opinion, I'm
doing no service to nobody.
I'm treating you horribly as another human. So if I lie to my wife, if I lie to my neighbor, if I lie to my friend, and this is just who I always was. I learned that from my ancestors, and I just believe that's who we need to be. That's who we need to get back to, a really tough society where, we got to tell each other the truth. And sometimes the truth's not that nice, but at the end of the day, it's love.
100%. What are your handles? How can people reach you?
Yeah, I use my name for everything. It's at John D. Macari, Macari. I use it on Twitter. I use it on Instagram. At The Finest Unfiltered is where you can get my podcast on YouTube or on Rumble. And then we're on Apple. We're on Spotify. We're on every major platform, Pandora, everything. And that's New York's Finest, Retired and Unfiltered podcast. And, you know, like I said, we just have these conversations based around policing and policy and legislation. And, you know, and we have every regular day people come on too. We have anti-police advocates come on, and we're having the conversation that our elected officials and the appointed management of these police departments, and particularly in blue big cities, aren't willing to have. And, you know, obviously it's ruffling a lot of feathers by just using words.
Right. Right. It's amazing, bro. Yo, it's great to have you, man.
Yeah,
thanks for coming by,
having me,
bro.
brother.
Appreciate it. Welcome
bro.
back to New York,
Yeah,
man.
thank
All
you,
right,
brother.
enjoy.
Thank you.
Episode 13, John Macari, and we're out.